Okay, so hello everybody, it's Gemma from Body Fix It. I hope you're well. I have the wonderful Nikki from BU Coaching and Happy Confident Kids joining me today. So welcome to Nikki and thank you for joining me. We are going to talk about stress, anxiety, being in the bubble, what kind of you can do to reduce some stress and feel a little bit better. And yeah, there's simple things that you can do right now which are going to help you. So I guess the starting point maybe is kind of what is anxiety and why do we feel those feelings of anxiousness and worry and stress?
So anxiety is a normal thing, and especially where we are at the moment, it is going to be a normal thing to experience a little bit more anxiety and worry and stress than maybe you would have done before COVID-19 happened. And that's because it's an inbuilt function that is millions of years old. And the bad news is you're not going to get rid of it. The good news is it's really easy to learn to manage the anxiety and the stress and the worry. So the first thing to do is to recognize that actually the thoughts that you're thinking are pretty normal. If you find that they are overtaking your life, then that's when it's not helpful. So where we are at the moment, there is a real threat. It's not even perceived. So some people get anxious about things which in reality are not really things to get anxious or worried about. But right here, right now, there is a global pandemic. And we are going to feel an element of anxiety about it. Even somebody with all the skills that I have occasionally start getting worried about the what ifs, because that's probably the first signal that you are being anxious or worried about things. It's the what if, and the answer is usually quite catastrophic. The things that you can, so anxiety is something that is created within our minds in a nanosecond. So before your conscious mind is aware, you have an unconscious mind, which is way more powerful than your conscious mind, that says there is a potential threat to life. Because as human beings, we are designed for two major things. Everything else after that is surplus to requirements. Superfluous, that's the word I was looking for.
You get
that. Is we are designed to survive and procreate.
Yeah.
And be as efficient as possible in doing that.
Yeah.
So once you've met those needs, you're surviving and you're procreating, assuming you're at the age, the rest of it is an added bonus.
Yeah.
So right here, right now, there is something which is a threat to life. So of course, our internal anxiety thermometer, barometer, whatever you want to call it. Actually, I quite often call it a meerkat on 24/7 duty. You know that meerkat that's like in the pack looking around for everything?
Just always on alert.
Yeah. That is pretty much our way of looking for potential threats. And at the moment, when it's scanning for one, it's finding one. So it's going to be reasonable that you are going to experience some elements of anxiety, worry, and stress. So essentially, that's what anxiety is, designed to keep us alive.
Yeah, and I think it's that normally you can tick over and you can manage what you normally feel in a normal existence. But I think, I don't know if you agree with this, but there's your hierarchy of needs, and you're getting some of your needs met, but maybe in a different way, or maybe you kind of. I did a video the weekend. It was what are you neglecting? It's like, are you getting your needs met, or are you kind of doing the stuff you have to do to keep safe and feeling like you're safe and well and keeping everybody else looked after, but you might not then be taking care of yourself as well?
Yeah, so many of us will be in survival mode, which is what you're describing, just getting along, just doing the best that we can. Yeah. But when we're in survival mode, we're not meeting those other needs, which are important, because otherwise you find yourself kind of like spiraling down to just being reactive to the situation that you're in. And that brings a sense of helplessness with it. When you find yourself in that passive. Passive is a word I use a lot, and when we're faced with a real threat which we are truly passive to, which is a virus, in fact all illnesses, all colds, we tend to be largely passive towards, we can feel helpless. And when we feel helpless, that trumps up the anxiety levels.
Mm.
So although we might feel that we're in survival mode, you're absolutely right. We need to pay attention to those things that meet those other needs, and find, if we're not meeting those needs, finding those other ways to be able to meet them. For example, we have some basic human needs, which is to feel that we belong.
Mm.
And your feeling of belongingness might be just to yourself, or your feeling of belongingness might be to a wider audience. And if that is compromised at the moment, you're going to need to find other ways of feeling a sense of belonging. And there are lots of things that are popping up, especially online, to help you meet those needs. So there are a variety of different groups, networking. There are lots of exercise classes that have gone online, and mindfulness. There's a whole host of things. Even art is now going online. So if you know that you're somebody that needs to belong to a bigger picture, so typically somebody who's more extroverted, then you're going to need to pay attention to that and start taking charge of those things and taking action to be able to meet those needs. Otherwise, you're going to, sort of mental well-being way, you're going to actually decrease your level of resilience, your ability to be able to deal with everyday things.
Mm. And I think even the introverts, like I'm a total introvert, and Nikki knows this, but you know, even as an introvert, you still need some interaction with people. You still need that connection with your friends, and to be doing something which feeds you and nourishes you, rather than, oh, I've got to go and see lots and lots of people online, or I've got to join in groups and stuff. It could just be that you just want to talk to one person, or maybe, like you say, you do some art or something creative. I'm talking to my plants at the moment. You know, there's lots of different things, whatever works, but it's that thing. And also the word resilience, it's a difficult word, resilience, because that's being used a lot at the moment.
Mm.
And I can understand resilience in that it's you sort of not fortifying yourself, but just keeping yourself above that line of keeping out that spiral. But I think also resilience, in my head, I kind of feel like that's putting on an armor, if that makes sense. And yes, I think you've got to put on an armor, but there also needs to be a softness to it, and allowing yourself to feel what's going on, and like you say, recognizing it, and then, okay, I've recognized it, I can change it, so what can I think differently about it, and things like that. So I don't know how you feel about that as well.
I think my version of resilience would be the ability to bounce back even in the face of adversity, because life does send us challenges, and those challenges could be you're stuck in a house with children and you just do not know how to manage those situations. You're going stir crazy because you are an extrovert and you're not having those needs met. For me, resilience is the ability to be able to bounce back even when those things happen. So whether it is putting an armor on, whether it is digging yourself out of that hole, it is that ability to be able to be active in what happens next rather than passive. Because psychologically, when you're active in what happens next, then you feel a sense of hopefulness, and hopefulness is the antidote to anxiety. Anxiety tends to become worse when you don't feel that you have an answer, or where you don't know what to do next. Any plan where you think, oh yeah, that looks good, is going to be a good plan for you. And also things that, so how to become more resilient, how to meet those needs when you don't have a clue what they are because you've never found yourself in this situation. Here's a little key. If ever you find yourself reflecting on the last few minutes, half an hour, and you think, oh my God, I haven't thought about what's going on in the world at all, that is the sort of thing that is going to be able to boost your morale. So whether it's watching a movie, reading a book, whether it's doing some exercise, if you haven't thought about your anxious thoughts, worries or stresses for that period of time, then those are the sorts of things that you need to be doing more of. Because what you're doing is focusing on other things which are more beneficial to you.
Yeah. I think, and that's true. It's that exercise. But people can use that exercise as then you become addicted to it in a way, can't you? Because you can then go, oh, if I'm exercising, then I don't think about anything. So this is good. But then you can overdo it, and it's like actually you need that exercise to get that mental space. So sometimes I think there's that balance between doing something that's high energy, gets the adrenaline pumping, gets the hormones around your body, so that you're feeling better, but also some of the quieter things as well, which give you that mental space, so you're not thinking about things in quietness. It doesn't have to be something really active, and you don't want to get too, you've always got to do it, and I don't know, just kind of pressuring yourself to say I have to exercise every day, or I have to meditate every day, or something like that, and then life gets crazy and you go, oh my god, now I'm going to beat myself up because I haven't done it today. And it's that balance, isn't it, between setting an intention to do something, rather than, oh, I have to do this every day, and then beating yourself up about it.
I think, and you've hit the nail on the head, I think the key difference is not to increase necessarily the hormones such as adrenaline, noradrenaline, DHEA and cortisol, because anxiety is very much increasing those anyway. It's the dopamine, it is the oxytocin, it's the serotonin. Those are the chemicals that you need to be increasing, and those are the happy hormones, so the things that bring you joy.
Yep.
So if exercise brings you joy, then you're increasing those happy hormones. If exercise is something that you feel that you must or should do, they are increasing your stress hormones. So it's very much a case of finding what brings you joy, happiness, love, all of those words. And everybody has different words for describing that way of being. And steering away from those that you feel, and notice the words I'm using, must or should, tend to be somebody else's expectations and not your own. So if you hear yourself, oh, I should exercise, just ask yourself going, actually, do I want to? There's a difference between need and want as well. So need is very much your basic human needs. Do I need to be doing something? And do I want to be doing something? They're very different questions to ask yourself. And another sneaky word to use, because I specialize in mind language, is I could.
Yes.
Because could brings out opportunity rather than necessity. So I could exercise, or I could eat healthily, or I could eat that cake. That brings up different answers than I must, I should.
Totally. It's something I'm working on. I'm not perfect at it, but it's that I could do something rather than I must, or I feel like, it's that self-pressure again, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
And I think also we've kind of talked about it before, is those physical symptoms of stress that I see as a massage therapist. People hold the tension in their body, and that great book which I'm starting to read, When the Body Says No. So it's all that cortisol levels, reducing your cortisol levels, getting your sleep pattern, all those kind of things. So I think it's those little strategies that you can do, and maybe you've got some tips on that to as well as how it's kind of that gut health, brain, how your body's working, all of those kind of things. How do you get that flowing better, so your cortisol levels are better and your body feels better as well as your mind?
Yeah, well, some people are so brilliant at thinking about stress and anxiety and worry thoughts that they don't actually realize they're doing it. So probably the first thing to do is to notice, have you spent most of the day feeling anxious? If so, then you need to put a plan in place or take some steps towards reducing that. And it's a journey, it's not a destination, and everybody will be on that journey at a different pace, at a different rate of speed, and it's being okay with that. There are some physical things, psychological things, and sort of passive things that you can do as well to help yourself, and it's working out what's best for you. So the physical aspects of taking charge and being active in reducing your anxiety levels is to do the simple things, and there are many techniques out there, is that you can literally just raise your shoulders up to your ears and drop them as you breathe out. And I'd encourage you to find an actual video on this rather than just the seconds.
I talk to people about that all the time, so some of them will already know that one.
And it is the breathing, and again, finding there are many different versions. There is a longer breath than out breath and the in-breath. That's probably key for changing the chemical composition in your body.
Yeah.
Having a longer out breath. So you can do 7-11, but if you find yourself just focusing on counting rather than the breathing, then you need to stop doing that and find something that does work. There's box breathing, where it's 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, hold for 4. It is trying these things on for size. It's a bit like if you went clothes shopping. You try clothes on to see whether they suit you or not, and then the ones that don't suit you, you discard. And this is no different. It's finding what works for you. Breathing is very powerful and often overlooked.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who don't actually breathe properly. So it could be as simple as lying down in bed at night and having a hand on your chest and your tummy. And when you breathe in, both hands should move. If only the top hand, whether it's your right or left, is moving, then actually you're breathing in an anxious way. So without even knowing it, you're telling your body you're anxious. So practicing or learning how to breathe, and again, I'd encourage you to find some videos or some counsel on that to be able to do that properly outside the scope of this conversation. There are other things that you can do as well to still your mind. Some people like meditation where there's an absence of thought. Some people like meditation where you're guided, so you focus on one thing at a time. Some people like using exercise as a form of meditation, so meditation through movement. So that could be as anything from gardening to running to cycling. Some people like escaping as a form of meditation into a good book or a good movie. So again, it's working out what benefits you rather than what somebody else says you should or should not do. Again, there's our word again. If you ever hear should, you need to question it, or must.
Yeah. I think it's allowing yourself and that permission of giving yourself that time to explore that as well. Like now we've got more time. Some people don't, some people do, but we've got, I think, more capacity maybe to start exploring those things because it's maybe more important right now. So actually, if you that's the wrong word, but if you prioritize it and start to explore it, and like you say, try one thing, okay, that didn't quite work, try another, then you're exploring what's right for you as well.
Yeah, it is finding the best fit. And there are other like hacks that you can do to help get into what I would call healthy habits. Things like, if you're a list writer, the first thing on that list of your day is something that's for you. That then says that you prioritize you, that you are worth it, that you are important. It works on so many levels. Or first thing in the morning, a lot of people find it useful to like get up and the first thing they do is something for them. And it doesn't need to be a long period of time. It can just be as simple as 5 minutes in the garden with this beautiful weather that we have at the moment, with a cup of tea in some peace and quiet. It might be putting your headphones on and listening to some sort of rip-roaring music. It really doesn't matter what it is. It might be going for a walk. It is setting the intention of prioritizing you so that the old saying is you can't pour from an empty jug. If you're not resilient, if you're not buoyant, then how on earth can you be there for other people, or how can you bounce back for when things are challenging, which they are at the moment for a lot of people on many different levels.
Yes, totally true. And it came to my mind that when we met a while ago, we were talking about the ducks and how they float on the ponds. Maybe you want to explain that for everybody?
Yeah, most people who know me know the metaphor I use for being buoyant, and it is rubber ducks. And it's not mine, it's from the founder of osteopathy, who was a pastor, a doctor of science, and a mechanic as well. But he believed that human beings were like rubber ducks, were designed to be buoyant in life. And you can see this when you look at children, because they tend to, if they get a virus or an illness, they will be as sick as their body does whatever it needs to do. They'll have a temperature. They will very much do what they need to do for the period of time that they need to do it for. And then suddenly, usually when the parent's in a state of panic, run out of hours, taking them off to out of hours or whatever it is. And then as you're sitting in the waiting room, your child then suddenly starts jumping around and bouncing around as if nothing's wrong, and you look out to be a right liar. And anyone who's a parent will very much get to know that. And us as adults, very much, when we're poorly, we do bounce back. If we don't bounce back, that's because there's something that's weighting us down or holding us down. And if you work out what that is and get rid of it, you will find yourself bounce back up. And with the work that I do, it's very much what I teach people to do, is to get rid of whatever's weighting you down. If it's toxic relationships, you may not be able to resolve it tomorrow. If it's worries about finances, you may not be able to resolve it tomorrow. If you start putting a plan in place, you'll feel buoyant immediately. I was speaking to a lady last week who was in a bit of a challenging situation, and she valued routine and structure. And that's the one thing she'd let go, because she thought, what's the point? Yeah. And I said to her, actually, start putting the alarm on Monday to Friday at a set time. Start getting up and start doing the things that you'd normally do, like getting dressed, brushing your hair, brushing your teeth, all of those things that had just gone out the window. So like, I'm not seeing anyone, why should I bother? And in a very few short days, she felt so much better just by doing what was useful for her. And now she feels more buoyant, so she's more able to deal with the children being at home and the overwhelming homework stuff and all the other things that were going on for her. She now feels more capable because she's done that very simple thing just for her.
Fabulous. So I guess in kind of summary, in terms of simple tips that people can do right now, if you said 3 or 4 that people could, if they fancy, start doing things, what would they be?
I think the 3 tips that I would give you is, if your sleep's gone down the pan, then start doing something about that, because there's so much that goes on during sleep that helps maintain buoyancy and resilience. And I put out an email yesterday, and I'll put that on my website as well, about tips. And I know you've done a lot around sleep as well. So it's getting a good sleep hygiene routine and all of those things that you can find elsewhere. So tip 1 is get your sleep in order. Tip 2 is do something for you that brings you joy, happiness, or laugh every day. Carve out time for yourself, what that is. And the 3rd tip is the serenity prayer, without a shadow of a doubt, which is another of my things that any of my clients who've worked with me will hear me saying. And the serenity prayer is to have the serenity to accept those things that you can't change, have the courage to change those things that you can, and have the wisdom to know the difference. So those would be my 3 top tips to be able to facilitate getting through these challenging and strange times the best way that you possibly can.
Brilliant, thank you. And the one other thing we just wanted to touch on slightly, I think, we don't want to make it a really long video, but we talked about or with clients and people that I'm talking to, it's quite interesting how people feel like they're in a bubble right now, and at some point, you know, that bubble is going to start to, we're going to get lifted from lockdown, or, you know, people are going to have to go back to work, or, you know, all of those kind of things. And people, I think at the back of their head, they're quite fearful and anxious about, oh, I feel quite protected right now, I can control what I can control in a way, I've got used to that. How then do I then get comfortable in that situation of coming out of that bubble?
Okay, so my recommendation would be, we are in a unique situation which we've never experienced before. And that's where human beings tend to be too hard on themselves. So I would start treating yourself like you would a small child who had never been in a situation before. So coach yourself in a kind and compassionate way and take baby steps. Because we are in a situation that none of us, or most of us, have never experienced before. Who here has been in a pandemic and had the government or the place that they live in dictate how they live their lives? Very few people will be able to put their hands up to that one. And if they have been able to put their hands up, they're probably sitting there going, well, I'm fine, I'm not anxious, because I've dealt with this before. And that's how the human brain works. Whenever we find ourselves in a situation, we look in our filing cabinet of memories and go, what do we do here? Right here, right now, for the vast majority of us, that filing cabinet's bloody empty. We have no idea what to do. So start behaving and coaching and teaching yourself step by step. Okay, what needs to happen next? Well, I need to get comfortable with doing this, or I need to be able to do that. How am I going to do that? What's the first step towards doing it? Because the thing that tends to come hand in hand with anxiety is overwhelm. And overwhelm is where you try and make things too complicated, too complex, and try and deal with too many things at one time. So what's the first step?
Brilliant. That's good. I like that. I think that's that first step of working it out, feeling what feels good for you as well, and just taking that action that you feel isn't adding to that anxiety and that stressfulness, if that makes sense.
Yeah. If you know that you can do something, it's the old adage, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. So whatever happens next, if you set yourself up with, yeah, I can do that, then you're much more likely to succeed, much less likely to feel anxious about it, and more likely to feel confident that you're able to deal with what happens next.
It's that confidence, isn't it? It's that choice. It's that being able to choose how you react to something and having that confidence to take that action and going forward with it, definitely.
Yeah, it is. And confidence comes from the internal knowledge of knowing that you can do something rather than you can't do something.
Yeah.
And if you lack confidence or lack self-esteem for whatever reason, then it's setting yourself up for success every day. It's almost like every day writing down the things that you have achieved, so you can start building that internal self-validation that you are capable, that you are able. It's looking back in your life and going, what have I achieved? Look at all of those things and looking for the smaller things, because we tend to edit out that actually I have achieved whatever it is. You need to start looking at the smaller things, like I had a really bad day and I felt terrible rubbish and really low mood, but I still got out of bed and I still brushed my teeth. That sort of level, rather than I created a multi-million-pound company. You don't need to be there right now. You need to be looking at the small stuff. And you know what? I showed up.
Showed up, you had a smile on your face with or without makeup, and then everything went okay.
Yeah, I read a book, I did something, I made myself something to eat, or I made myself a cup of coffee and I drank it whilst it was hot.
Yeah.
We're looking at the small things to be able to say, yes, I did that.
Perfect. Wow. Thank you so much for all those little insights, really helpful insights that we can all start doing better and making better choices. So thank you very much, Nikki. So we're going to record the video. We've got the recording and we'll put it on the newsletter. And then Nikki's got some resources that we can share out as well. So, and if you want to chat to Nikki by yourself, you can do. So she's BU coaching and she is Happy Confident Kids as well. So she works with children as well. So
if you Google my name, you pretty much find me. So it's Nikki Emerton.
Perfect. She'll come up, she'll pop up, and she will be a ray of sunshine in your day.
Thank
you, Nikki.
Thank you very much. Lovely to see you, Gemma.
Bye.